Revealed, the inspiring moment a black CEO discovers shocking truth, transforming lives overnight. The sun blazed down on the annual Harvest Festival, a beloved event in small-town Midwestern America. Families chatted over funnel cakes while laughter echoed, filling the air with a sense of unity. In the middle of the good cheer stood Jordan Ellis, a young black man whose journey had redefined what success looked like. Just a few years ago, he was a boy watching his single mother toil away at her nursing job, carrying the weight of their struggles on her tired shoulders. Now, as the proud CEO of an innovative tech company, he was a beacon of hope, a testament to perseverance. Today, he would share that message of hope, urging his community to stand together against the storms of injustice, but his heart raced as he rehearsed his speech, a thick knot of apprehension coiling in his chest. He had always believed in the transformative power of community, but would they believe in him? As he scanned the crowd, something pulled at him, a feeling he couldn't shake. Moments later, that feeling turned to dread when he overheard talk of Mr. Thompson, the town's beloved veteran. A predatory mortgage scheme was threatening his home. The cheerful atmosphere around him turned sour as the realization struck. Countless families in their community were facing similar threats, living in the shadows of exploitation. Jordan stole away from the merrymaking to find Mr. Thompson alone, sitting on a bench, his usual smile replaced by a deep frown. Their eyes met, and Jordan saw the weight of the world in those aged features. "They're trying to take my home, Jordan," Mr. Thompson said, voice shaking with fear. In that moment, anger surged within Jordan. The festival, once a symbol of unity, now felt like a thin veneer hiding a harsh reality, a reality that had always been waiting just beneath the surface. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jordan stood, a flood of emotions swirling. Could he really make a difference? The weight of the crowd's expectations bore down on him. The jovial laughter that had filled the air now seemed like a distant memory. As he stepped back into the heart of the festival, he felt the skepticism seep through the townspeople. They had watched him rise while many had struggled. Would they rally behind him now? His challenge became clear: unite the townspeople to support Mr. Thompson, to confront the systemic injustices they had turned a blind eye to. Murmurs of dissent rose among them, with some refusing to see past their biases. Frustration surged in Jordan. "We need to help," he shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. Yet, the crowd's cynicism lingered, leaving him feeling isolated and vulnerable, but he remembered his mother's lessons: the fight was always worth that first hard push. Inspired, he resolved to stand firm against their skepticism. In this moment of despair, he saw the flicker of hope within the eyes of those listening. The air crackled with tension. If only he could spark a fire within them. Jordan stood shoulder to shoulder with Mr. Thompson, preparing to galvanize the crowd once more. He felt the strength of the community's heart feeding his own determination. As the crowd hushed, a sense of unity began to bloom. But just as he reached for the call to arms in his heart, a chilling announcement blasted over the speakers, threatening to shatter their fragile hopes. The battle for what was right was just beginning. Would they stand together, or would the town's deep-seated issues pull them apart? The answer loomed just out of reach, leaving the community and the readers waiting breathlessly for what came next. The air was electric with anticipation, but the joyous spirit of the Harvest Festival felt like a distant echo now. As the announcement rang out, a wave of unease washed over the crowd. Jordan could sense the shift. The laughter faded to whispers, and all eyes turned toward him, searching for answers. He felt the weight of their hope pressing like a heavy stone on his chest. "Ladies and gentlemen," the voice over the speaker announced, "due to unforeseen circumstances, the festival has been temporarily halted. We need to ask everyone to return to their homes while we address some urgent safety concerns." The words were a gut punch. Just like that, the celebration transformed into uncertainty, the joyous festival now overshadowed by fear. Jordan locked eyes with Mr. Thompson. In that moment, everything crystallized. If they were going to face these challenges, they would need a plan not just for Mr. Thompson but for every family facing predatory tactics. A quiet determination set in. He turned to the crowd. "We can't allow fear to win," he called out, his voice strong and clear. "What's happening to Mr. Thompson is happening to many of us. We need to stand together." Some in the crowd nodded, but others crossed their arms, skeptical. "What can we do?" A voice called out from the back, tinged with doubt. The question spurred a fire in Jordan's belly. "We can organize," he shouted. "Let us call a town meeting. Let us talk to our neighbors, our friends, and figure out how we can help one another. We have the power to turn this tide." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. One by one, people began to step forward, emboldened by his words. Old Mrs. Harmon, known for her apple pie, raised her hand. "I can open my barn. We can have our meeting there." Others chimed in, offering resources, time, spaces, ideas. Each voice was a stitch in a fabric of solidarity beginning to form. With renewed energy, Jordan felt the anger and sadness melt away, replaced by a fierce hope that ignited within him. This community, though weathered and divided, was starting to rally together. But deep within, a worry gnawed at his thoughts. Were they strong enough to face the powerful forces arrayed against them? As they planned on action steps, the shadows of doubt lingered. Would their gathering strength be enough? Confident faces turned to the horizon, hopeful yet uncertain. The festival's distractions seemed small now compared to their mission. Jordan felt the spirit of his mother, her unwavering belief in community resilience guiding him. He had to channel that strength, but doubts lingered. What if the fight failed? Just as excitement began to replace despair, a loud crash echoed from nearby, drawing everyone's attention. A group of white men stood by the closed festival entrance, visibly angry. They were holding placards, their faces hard-set, shouting harsh slogans that spoke of keeping the town the way it was. The air thickened with tension, fear mingling with anger as they realized this fight was not just about Mr. Thompson's home but about their identities and futures. Jordan's heart raced. The battle lines were drawn. Would they stand their ground, or would fear tear them apart once more? The tension was palpable, and he could almost hear the heartbeat of the town quickening, waiting for someone to make a move. As the crowd shifted uneasily, Jordan took a deep breath, ready to step forward. He had no idea what would happen next, but one thing was clear: this was only the beginning, and the stakes had just gotten a whole lot higher. Would he muster the courage to confront the escalating conflict? Jordan felt the sting of anger rise up as he stepped forward, hands clenched into fists at his sides. The men outside were not just strangers, they embodied a deeper fight, historical wounds still raw for so many. He could feel his heart drum in his chest, the weight of the crowd behind him urging him on. He glanced back at Mrs. Harmon, her gray hair catching the red light of the festival banners. She nodded at him, as if saying, "You can do this." "Hey!" he shouted, his voice cracking through the uncertainty like a whip. The shouts from the crowd of protesters faltered, eyes turning toward him. "What are you doing?" one of them yelled, pointing a finger as if he were the enemy. "This town doesn't need your kind stirring things up." Jordan swallowed, pushing past the fear. "This town belongs to all of us," he declared. "You want to talk about keeping things as they are? Well, some of us have been living on the edge of change for far too long. It's time to step into the light, not retreat into shadows." The crowd behind him swelled, voices rising in murmurs of assent. Fueled by the strength of his community, he felt a flicker of hope. They could do this together. The chants of the protesters were harsh, but the voices of his neighbors rang clear and true. "Let us show them we can stand our ground," someone yelled, and the collective roar of their voices rose in protest of the hostility. Jordan's heart raced as he thought about Mr. Thompson's family, the weight of their struggles putting steel in his spine. Suddenly, the leader of the group outside raised his hands in opposition, signaling for silence. "You folks don't know what you're getting into," he called out. His expression was hard, but beneath, Jordan could see uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "You think you can just come in and change things?" "We're not changing things," Jordan yelled back, his voice trembling with passion. "We're bringing things back to what they ought to be. This is about fairness, about everyone having a place." For a moment, time seemed to hang still. The energy of the festival had evaporated, replaced by a tense standoff. Jordan held his breath, searching the faces of the crowd, their expressions a mosaic of fear, hope, and determination. It dawned on him that this moment could redefine their town's legacy, but just as he thought the tide might turn, a familiar voice called out sharply above the screaming. "You think yelling will change anything?" It was Felix, the town's mayor, pushing through the group of protesters and stepping to the front lines. His presence alone commanded attention, the air buzzed with his authority. "We need dialogue, not division," Felix said, but his tone was edged with something more sinister. Jordan could sense the undercurrent of his words, a veiled threat buried deep in the call for peace. "Real change needs to start with all of us talking," Felix continued, gesturing back to the angry group. "If you want to fight, then don't expect any cooperation." Jordan's gut twisted. Was this really the moment for negotiation? Would they allow fear to create a rift? Just as the moment stretched unbearably, an unexpected voice broke through. It was Mr. Thompson, stepping between the two groups, his face worn but full of authority. "They may not understand what we're fighting for today, but we need to show them that there's strength in unity, not fear," he said, looking at both sides. His voice pierced the tension like a beacon. Jordan nodded, heart racing. Maybe this was at the moment he could channel his mother's belief in resilience. "Mr. Thompson is right. Let us come together, so that we all have a place in this town." And yet, as confirmation echoed among the crowd, a loud crack sounded, a flash from the protester's side followed by a shattering of glass. The air thickened with a sense of dread. Jordan's heart raced. What had just been a fight of words was spiraling into something much darker. Would they hold their ground? Would they let fear take over? As the sound of shattering glass echoed through the square, a murmur of uncertainty rippled through the crowd. Jordan felt the sharp jolt of panic shoot through him. The delicate balance between confrontation and conversation was at risk of collapsing. He turned towards Mr. Thompson, seeking the elder's steady gaze, hoping for guidance in this chaos. "Stay calm." Mr. Thompson raised his voice, his composure still intact despite the tension in the air. "We must not let our emotions lead us to violence." He looked from Jordan to the gathered protesters, urging everyone to breathe, to think. What was that? A woman shouted from the back, disbelief in her tone. Jordan caught a glimpse of her frightened expression, and it tugged at his heart. This was meant to be a moment of unity, not chaos. "Stay in your groups," shouted Felix, waving frantically. His voice seemed to scrape against the rising waves of fear. "Don't let them provoke you." But his words rang hollow to many. He was part of the problem. The crowd noticed, and the mood darkened. Taking a deep breath, Jordan stepped forward again, forcing himself to look at the protesters as humans rather than adversaries. "We all want a better future for our families," he said slowly, his voice steadier now. "What are we really afraid of? Are we afraid of each other? Of change?" A heavy silence fell, every eye fixed on him with desperate hope. If only they could see their shared humanity, maybe they could find a way through this. He felt the energy shift in the crowd behind him, bolstering his spirit. The glances exchanged spoke volumes. They were an unbreakable tapestry woven from stories and struggles, but just then, another protester, rage in his eyes and a brick in his hand, shouted, "You think we're afraid? We're just protecting what's ours." The tension snapped back, sharper than before. Jordan's heart raced, sweat beading on his brow. He could see Felix gloating slightly, feeding off the rising chaos, a man with a vested interest in seeing this go wrong. The mayor wasn't here for peace, he was here to maintain control, and that control was fraying. "Stop!" Jordan yelled, planting his feet firmly, anchoring himself. "This isn't about taking, it's about sharing. There's enough room for all of us." His words landed like a pebble thrown into a still pond. The murmurs of his neighbors grew louder, the anger dissipating slowly, uncertainty giving way to curiosity. "Let us hear each other." Mrs. Harmon's voice cracked above the din, echoing Jordan's sentiment. "We can talk. We should talk." Sensing an opportunity, Jordan seized it. "Yes. We can listen." He called out, his nerves still floating under a thin layer of hope. "All voices matter here, even if we do not agree." But just when it seemed like clarity was emerging, the protester tightened his grip on the brick, and time seemed to slow. "You don't know what you're asking for." Jordan's breath caught in his throat. Instinctively, he took a cautious step toward the man, heart thudding wildly. "I know we can build a bridge, or we can tear down what little we have left." He reached out, palm open, inviting connection rather than conflict. "Please." The man hesitated, confusion faltering the rage in his features. Maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to turn this swirling storm into a conversation instead, but the tension still crackled in the air, and the moment hung precariously, waiting for a decision. Would they embrace the call for understanding, or would they succumb to the fear that threatened to tear them apart? As silence loomed, a shadow fell across the crowd. People gasped and shifted as a police car rolled into view, sirens blaring, amplifying the uncertainty that brewed among them. Jordan's heart sank. Would the arrival of law enforcement escalate things further? What would happen next? Would support emerge from this chaos, or was this just the beginning of something far worse? The sirens pierced through the tension, their wailing cutting into the crowd like a rusted knife. Faces turned, fear settling deeper into furrowed brows. Jordan's heart raced faster than ever, thudding in a wild rhythm against his chest. He strained to see the officers pouring out of the police car. There were 4 of them, uniforms pressed, hands already resting on their belts. "Stay together." Mr. Thompson's voice rose again, though it was barely audible over the chaos. "Let us show them we are peaceful." Jordan felt a mix of determination and dread. Would the officers see them as friends or foes? He glanced around at the faces of his neighbors, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. They needed reassurance, something tangible to hold on to, even in the midst of fear. "Let us stand our ground," he shouted, his voice thick with conviction. "We are here to talk. Not to fight." The police officers exchanged tense glances, confused, but they didn't advance. Instead, one stepped forward, a calm but firm presence amongst the chaos. "This is a dispersal order," he called out, his voice echoing across the square. "You need to break this gathering up. It's become dangerous." Jordan felt a wave of despair wash over him. Dangerous? All they wanted was a conversation, a chance to share their hopes. "Please, don't make this worse," he yelled, desperation creeping into his words. "We want to speak, to listen. To be heard." The tension in the air felt thick and heavy, like an iron blanket suffocating any chances of resolution. The crowd grew restless, voices raised in protest against the officer's command, emotions swinging like a pendulum, caught between fear and the yearning for connection. Beside him, Felix's smirk had faded, replaced by something darker. "They're going to make an example of us," he muttered, bitterness etched on his face. Jordan could see Felix's heartbeat quickening, his fists clenching. Suddenly, the protester with the brick dropped it to the ground with a heavy thud. The sound resonated through the crowd, drawing everyone's attention. "You think this is what we want?" he shouted, anger morphing into something softer, a plea echoing through the tension. "We're tired of being divided." A ripple of agreement rolled through the crowd, and Jordan could feel the shift. Here was an opening, a crack in the wall of anger that had built up. He stepped again towards the man, now united in this shared realization. "What if we stood together?" he asked, voice steady now. "What if we showed them that we can listen?" The atmosphere pulsed with a renewed energy, something akin to hope spreading like wildfire through the throngs of nervous humanity. Murmurs began to stir, voices rising in chorus, driven by the flicker of unity. "Let us show them what we can become." Mrs. Harmon shouted again, her voice ringing with notes of authority. "This is our moment." The police officer who had been watching stepped back, brow furrowed. Jordan seized the moment, gesturing for quiet. "We have the power to define this moment. Let us choose peace," he called, the weight of his words hanging in the air, thick as fog, but just as the tides began to shift, one officer spoke into his radio, voice lowering conspiratorially. "We have a situation, we might need backup." Those words felt like a knife to the heart. Jordan's stomach twisted. Would more officers add to the tension or escalate it further? It was a gamble they couldn't afford. Suddenly, everything felt like it was on the edge of a knife. Would they trust their instincts and forge their path, or would they fall into the trap of fear? Jordan stood there, the weight of the moment palpable, ready to guide them but unsure of what still loomed ahead. How could he keep the crowd united when the stakes kept rising, swirling like smoke before them? And as the shadows deepened, he took a deep breath, preparing to lead them into the unknown, wondering which way this fractured moment might turn. Would it transform into something beautiful, or would it spiral into chaos? The power of that choice sat heavy in his hands. The air crackled with apprehension and possibility, each breath weighed down by the heavy silence that followed the officer's words. Jordan's heart raced, a wild drum in his chest as anxiety coiled tighter. He looked at the crowd, faces of neighbors he had known for years, suddenly transformed into a tapestry of worry and courage. "Listen!" Jordan shouted, trying to reach each trembling heart. "We can't let fear divide us. We need to show them what we're made of. We are more than just a protest." His voice quaked but resonated with a strength he didn't know he had. Felix shifted beside him, uncertainty muting his earlier bitterness. Jordan caught his eye, shared a breath, and felt the flicker of solidarity. In that moment, Felix nodded, almost imperceptibly. From the back of the crowd, someone shouted, "What are we fighting for if we can't stand together?" The words crackled through the throngs like an electrical spark, igniting a fire in their collective spirit. Jordan raised his hands, urging silence once more. "Let us turn this around. If we show them we can stand together, peacefully, they have no reason to push us away." As if propelled by an unseen force, the crowd began to chant, voices mixing and rising, each word infused with hope. "Together! Together!" The rhythm echoed, rolling through the square, drowning out the tension like water over a fire. But Jordan's gaze darted back to the officers, the stoic faces watching them. The lead officer shifted, his expression conveying a mixture of caution and curiosity. It was a small crack in the wall of authority, and Jordan couldn't let it slip away. "Look at us!" Jordan called out, intensifying his gaze across the sea of anxious faces. "Try to see us as neighbors, not enemies. We have stories, we have lives. We all want the same thing, a community where we can thrive." The crowd rallied with their voices, the energy transforming into something powerful. They weren't merely a gathering anymore. They were a movement, each heart beating in time, each spirit rising higher. But that power shifted in an instant as loud footsteps thundered in the distance. Jordan felt his stomach drop, a chill of panic racing through him. They were coming. More officers. More uniforms. Would they silence this rebirth? Would fear suffocate this fragile unity? A girl at the front, no older than 16, unleashed a piercing cry. "We're not going anywhere." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "We deserve to be heard." Jordan felt a surge of determination flood through him. He took a step closer, his voice steady. "We are not here to incite violence. We're here for change. For understanding. The words hung in the air, heavy yet hopeful. Then came a deep voice from the back. We stand with you. A man stepped forward, his stature imposing but eyes soft with understanding. The faces around him turned towards him, a mix of surprise and reverence washing across the crowd. For too long we've been silent, for too long we've stood apart. But now he held his hand high, we will give them something to remember. The ground trembled as the crowd erupted, fervor igniting a united front. Their voices rang out in harmony, fear eclipsed by one overarching truth. Together they were strong, but as the sea of blue badges approached, with that last call for unity, clarity washed over Jordan. This moment could be a turning point, or it could crumble. Yet as he stood there, determination coursed through him, a whisper in his heart urging him to believe, but as the officers drew closer, the crowd readied themselves, anticipation mingling with anxiety. What would it take to break the tense standoff? Would they break through this wall of fear, or would they face a confrontation that no one desired? As faces turned toward him, Jordan realized the answer lay within their hands. The thrill of change hung thick in the air. Would he guide them into peace, or would they find themselves ensnared in chaos? There, in that charged moment, the choice loomed just beyond their reach. The officers moved in close, their silhouettes blocking out the sunset that painted the sky in vibrant hues. Jordan's heart raced faster, each beat resonating with the chants of the crowd. They were so close now, neighbors standing shoulder to shoulder, fear mingling with bravery. He felt it all, their hope, their anxiety, their fierce desire for change. A shift in the air caught his attention. Jordan glanced at the officer leading the group, who now watched the scene unfold with narrowed eyes. The tension between them hung like a thick fog, yet within it was the promise of connection. Jordan swallowed hard, needing to speak again. We're not your enemy. We're your friends, your families. We're all in this together, fighting for the same future. In that breath, he realized that this was not merely his fight anymore, it was theirs. The people around him nodded, some gripping each other's arms for strength. The girl from earlier wiped her tears away, determination replacing despair. Her voice jumped into the fray stronger this time, we just want to be safe and heard. That rallying cry sparked renewed fervor. Safe and heard. Safe and heard. Erupted from the crowd, a primal blend of fear and resolve surging like a wave. Jordan felt the moment shift. They were no longer just a gathering, they were a pulse, a living entity, striving for understanding, but the officers pressed forward, shields raised, and the air thickened with unease. Stay back. One yelled, though doubt crept into his voice. The crowd faltered, momentarily stunned by the conviction behind the officer's stance. Jordan stepped forward, too. We don't come with aggression, only our stories, only our hopes. There was a quiver in his voice, but it merged with strength, piercing through the din like a beacon. What will you choose? To fight against us? Or to join us in building this community? For a heartbeat, the world shrank to just Jordan and that lead officer. Hands trembled with tension, breath held tight like a secret. Then something began to shift. Jordan saw a flicker of something in the officer's expression. It was the slightest divide between duty and humanity. People do want to be heard, murmured the officer, and the crowd's silence rushed back, ears perked for any sign of hope. Then he turned his attention back to the crowd. You say you're not violent, then show us. The challenge hung between them, a bridge to cross together. Jordan felt the weight of that moment. We will, he declared, his heart pounding, and we will do it together. At that proclamation, the crowd surged forward, and it wasn't out of anger, it was pure longing for connection, for understanding. They moved as one, unified by the shared desire to break through those barriers that end that very heartbeat. Jordan thought of his mother's stories about the past, about fighting the same battles. He had no intention of failing them, not today. But just then, a shout rang out from within the crowd, a voice so pure and filled with emotion. This is our moment to change everything. Jordan turned, realizing how quickly this turned from a conversation to a reckoning. This was not only about community anymore. It was about reshaping the future. He could feel the ground beneath them trembling with possibility, but just as hope surged, the officer raised a hand for silence once more. "Let me speak with you," he said, tone softer now. In that moment, everything hinged on their next steps, the crowd leaning into the future, grasping for connection, yearning for unity. Would they reach across the divide, or would the walls remain? With a breath, Jordan stepped forward again. "Let us talk," he said, the weight of the moment crashing over him like a storm, both terrifying and exhilarating. And behind them, as the sun dipped lower, a new dawn beckoned, hanging in the balance between fear and change. What lay on the other side of this moment, they didn't yet know, but they knew they must take that leap. Would they dare to hope for more, or would the walls of silence rise again? Jordan took a step closer to the officer, the rest of the crowd holding their breath. Their eyes shifted between the two, as if expecting the sky to crack open and let the light pour through, illuminating the path forward. Each heart beat faster, not out of fear but anticipation. This was a rare moment, a chance to erase years of misunderstanding with one conversation. "Let us hear each other," Jordan said, his voice steady, a calm amidst the brewing storm. "We're ready to show you who we are, not just the faces you see in headlines." The officer, still clutching his shield, looked from Jordan to the crowd. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple, revealing the fatigue in his eyes. "You really believe this can change anything?" he asked, skepticism lacing his words. "Yes," came the chorus from the crowd, a voice rising above the others. It looked like the girl from before, her face smeared with determination. "We want to listen. We want to understand, too." Jordan nodded, and for a moment, he thought of how simple moments can break through layers of fear. "We're not just a statistic. We have stories, we are more than our struggles. But we are willing to listen to yours, too." The officer's posture softened a fraction, his shield slowly dropping to his side. The space between them pulsed with possibility. It was as if a dam threatened to break, water rushing to find its way through. "All right," he finally said. "But this has to be real. No shouting over each other. Just honesty." Jordan inhaled deep, sensing the weight lifting just a little. "Then let us start fresh, right here." The crowd shifted, a ripple of excitement and nervousness traveling through their ranks. He could hardly believe how quickly this moment had shifted, as if they had been waiting for this opening all along. Jordan gestured towards a nearby bench. "Let us sit and share. I want you to understand what we feel, how we live. Today, we find connection. Not conflict." The officer glanced back to his fellow officers, who seemed unsure. Some remained tense, while others leaned closer, intrigued. Finally, he nodded and stepped towards the bench. He had crossed the line. One by one, people from the crowd joined them, forming a tight circle. Jordan, heart swelling, began to share stories of his upbringing, the lessons from his mother, and the struggles woven into their lives. As he spoke, he felt the surrounding energy changing, lifting from despair to something brighter. The officer, now seated, listened intently, clearly battling the storm of emotions welling inside. "I've never been on the receiving end of that kind of hurt," he said softly, a beat of silence stretching between them. "But I can see. I can feel how real this is." And with every shared story, the walls that had once held them apart began to crack. Selfish fears transformed into shared hopes. The girl from the crowd raised her voice again, tears shining in her eyes. "It's not easy, but we're all tired of the fighting. We just want to thrive together." A murmur of agreement swept through the circle. They were in this moment, together, and it felt pivotal, but just as they began to connect, they heard a commotion from the back of the line. An argument had erupted, tossing the peaceful atmosphere into chaos. Someone had thrown a bottle. Jordan felt the turmoil rise, dread tightening in his chest. All their efforts were at risk. Had it all been for nothing? "Stay calm," the officer yelled, his authority breaking through the noise, yet uncertainty loomed. With tension escalating, could they hold on to the fragile bond they had just begun to form? The officer locked eyes with Jordan, seeking strength amidst confusion. "We can't lose this," he said, urgency reflecting in his eyes. And in that moment, as the crowd quaked with worry, Jordan understood the fight wasn't just against authorities. It was within themselves as well, overcoming doubt, fear, and the past. Would they unite against the chaos, or would they allow old ways to linger, extinguishing hope before it could fully ignite? Jordan's heart raced as he glanced towards the commotion. Voices clashed, thickening the tension that hung in the air. He quickly turned his focus back to the officer, who was now struggling to maintain order among his fellow officers. Their faces were contorted in various shapes of uncertainty and fear, making the situation feel less under control. "Can you hold them?" Jordan asked urgently, desperation creeping into his voice. "We need to keep talking." He wanted to believe they deep past the point of no return, that the fragile connection they had formed could withstand the chaos. The officer nodded, his eyes fierce with determination. "I'll try," he said, his voice low but firm. With a slight movement of his arm, he signaled to his colleagues, urging them to contain the backlash while the urgency to diffuse the growing tension spread like wildfire among them. The girl who had spoken earlier, her voice trembling, looked at Jordan. "What do we do?" she asked, vulnerability painted across her face. "Stay focused," he replied, steeling himself. "Don't let this moment slip away. We can't let anger drown out our voices." Others in the crowd began to chant, voices rising in unison like a wave. "We want peace. We want understanding." Each utterance was a powerful reminder of what they stood for, not just a refusal of violence, but a commitment to connection. It rang out, echoing through the chaos. As the commotion picked up behind them, Jordan turned back to the officer. "This was a pivotal moment. You came here to protect us, right?" he said, lowering his voice as if they were sharing a secret. "Now we need to protect this moment." "I hear you," the officer replied, his brows furrowing as he battled the noise behind them. "But if we don't take control now, it'll implode." A wave of fear coursed through the crowd, but Jordan pressed on, feeling a surge of courage. "Those people out there," he began, gesturing vaguely toward where the argument continued. "They're scared, too. Everyone is scared. But we need to show them something different. We need to show them that we can talk." A flicker of understanding sparked in the officer's eyes. "You're right," he said, sitting taller. "But we need them to see that we're trying. It's not just about control, it's about unity. We need to exemplify that." Jordan took a deep breath. He glanced around the crowd, knowing they could feel the uncertainty but hoping they could also sense the flicker of hope. "If we stand together in this moment, they can't ignore us. Show them who we are," he urged. As he spoke, he felt a tide of resolve sweep through the group. Individuals squeezed hands, tears glistening in eyes, nodding and sharing quick glances full of determination. They were slowly planting roots of hope that could withstand the tempest. Then, unexpectedly, the officer began to stand. "Listen!" he bellowed, commanding attention even through the noise. "We're all here because we want to listen and to change. Let us not allow this chaos to dictate our fate. Show your hearts." The crowd quieted for a moment, drawn to the one voice that carried authority. It felt surreal, seeing the officer reach across the gap, much like Jordan had tried to do. Now, they were two sides trying to meet in the middle, but just as it looked like calm might settle, a shout rose above the din. "They're just lying. They'll never change." It came from the back, a voice drenched in anger. Jordan's heart sank. How could they overcome this voice of despair? Would this chaos drown out their newfound hope? He looked at the officer, and what he found there was a reflection of the same fear he felt. In the eyes of those around them, he sensed a growing frustration mixed with deep longing. This was a test, one they had to conquer together. But could they confront the chaos and keep their connection alive in the process? Or would everything they had built come crashing down under the weight of disbelief? Jordan took a deep breath, focusing on the voice of doubt that echoed against the walls of hope they had just begun to construct. He could feel the tension tighten around him, a grip both familiar and intimidating. "We've all been afraid, Haven T. He called out, letting the vulnerability seep into his words. "It's okay to be scared, it's okay to worry. But let's choose to break that fear together." The crowd stirred, faces shifting from uncertainty to contemplation. Jordan could see the gears turning in their minds. That flicker of shared humanity he had seen before ignited again. "Those feelings some of you feel like we want to be heard, like nothing will change. I get it," he continued, urgency fueling his voice. "But if we give in to that fear, it only keeps us apart. Maybe that's what they want. And we won't let that happen," a woman shouted from near the front, emboldened by Jordan's words. "Exactly," he affirmed. "We're not their enemies, we're their neighbors, their families. If we want to be heard, we have to listen to one another first." As the crowd shifted, Jordan glanced at the officer beside him. He saw a flicker of resolution in the officer's eyes as he listened intently to the growing murmurs of agreement. With each passing moment, every chant of "we want peace, we want understanding," seemed to chip away at the weight of disbelief. For every voice that rose in skepticism, another voice emerged in solidarity. The girl from earlier spoke again, stepping forward. "I want to share why I'm scared. Because sometimes it feels like I don't belong here." Jordan's heart twinged with empathy. Each story shared was a thread weaving an intricate tapestry of understanding. He took her hand, squeezing it lightly as she continued, her voice trembling but resolute. "I want all of us to feel safe, to feel that our lives matter. No one should feel alone." "Yes!" shouted another, a voice Jordan recognized from childhood. "This is our town. We'll shape it together." That spark flew through the crowd, leapfrogging from person to person like electricity as they began to share their experiences, their fears, their hopes. Each shared moment became a building block, forging connections that had long been fractured. The officer stepped slightly forward, eyes widening as he absorbed their resilience. "Can you trust us?" he shouted, projecting sincerity. "Because I'm here to listen, to genuinely hear what you're saying. We're all capable of change if we embrace it together." An unexpected wave of quiet washed over the raucous crowd, the urgency of the moment pulsating like a heartbeat. Every person felt the weight of potential radiating forward, as if they were standing on the threshold of transformation. Jordan nodded to the officer, heart racing but filled with hope. "Let us show them what our community looks like when we're unified." Suddenly, a powerful voice rang out from the back. "We want to build a future." A man, visibly older but with fire in his eyes, stepped forward. "If we can't talk to one another, we fail everyone who comes after us." The crowd erupted into applause, waves of sound layering one on top of the other. In that moment, as Jordan surveyed the faces around him, he could feel the tide begin to shift. Hope thrummed through the air, a palpable force that drove them to feel united, empowered. "Let us gather again," Jordan shouted above the cheers. "Let us keep talking until we understand each other, and then we'll make it official. It starts here, and it will ripple through our town, our legacy." The crowd was electrified, with people buzzing about next steps, planning gatherings, sharing resources, building a future that embraced everyone. Jordan felt tears of joy pricking at his eyes. Each step they took toward unity made their community stronger, brighter. As the sun dipped low, scattering rays of soft gold across their faces, it was clear they were on the cusp of something greater. Together, they would confront the storms ahead, flipping fears on their heads. This wasn't just about Mr. Thompson anymore, it was about the heart of their town. As evening fell and shadows crept across the square, laughter began to bubble up again, but this time it echoed in harmony with the voices united. In that moment, surrounded by his friends, family, and neighbors, Jordan understood deep down this was the transformational moment they had all been waiting for. As laughter began again alongside hope, the challenge for change redefined their bonds, cementing their legacy once and for all. And now, dear friends, it's time for you to be part of this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about the ending. And most importantly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.